I'm Paul Simpson, Paul Cohen Patrick Simpson, 26, and I'm living in Perth at the moment, originally from Margaret River. Beautiful place. Yeah.
So, tell me about how you used to feel when drugs were a part of your life.
Well, I don't know, like for a long time I felt like they were like helping me, I guess, I felt good, but after a while it just sort of became like a ball and a chain, it was like something I couldn't live without, it affected my friendships, my family life, relationships with partners. I mean, sort of it became not a great aspect in my life. It's not something I really liked being in my life, really hindered it.
How did it hinder throughout your life?
Well, things like small things, small things like sort of when it came to hindering my life, I guess I needed it, or at least I felt I needed it, I couldn't go anywhere without it, and I couldn't travel, because I'd be worrying about sort of where I was going to get my next smoke from, and that was a big thing, cause I couldn't even go stay at friends' houses overnight, so much as that, because I didn't know whether I was allowed to smoke there or anything like that, and that more or less being because if I didn't have it, I wouldn't sleep, and if I didn't sleep, I'd go weird, and it wasn't really a good thing, and that affected things like relationships with girls, family, in those aspects. My family didn't like seeing me like that, it would have been hard for them, and that sort of put a distance between me and them. I was always hiding it, I didn't want them to know, so I found myself staying at home a lot. Didn't go out at all at the best of times, started to become paranoid about going out as well, paranoia is a big thing when it comes to pot abuse, or cannabis abuse, and other things like health-wise, obviously, he doesn't do that at first, but as time went on, my lungs, my fitness, I wasn't BMXing anymore, skating, doing anything that I used to do that made me happy. So along with that, my mental health, like depression, anxiety on going out, which was fueled by my paranoia, which was fueled by the cannabis. Especially when I didn't have it, I was fighting with friends, lifelong friends, and in hindsight, I never would have fought with them if that wasn't a factor. Same with my family. I never would have fought with them if that wasn't a factor in my life. So in a lot of different aspects, family, friends, relationships, going out, activities. I was missing out on a lot. And of course, my friends and my family and my partners that I had over times were missing out on a lot, and especially my son. When I got with my girlfriend, speaking of relationships, at first it was cool, it was a bit of a novelty thing between me and my girlfriend, she smoked a bit too, but when we had our son, as you would, she sort of wanted to start living straight, didn't want the pot around, and at the time, I like most people, I didn't see it as a big thing, everybody says, oh, it's just mull, it's just weed, it's nothing, and so I still had that mentality, and on the note of the anger thing, I was fighting a lot with her over that, because I had my views, I even got to the point where I was, growing it, selling it, like pounds and pounds of the stuff, really high quality, and she didn't want that around, and at the time, I fought with her over it, and intensely, and because I didn't see anything wrong with it. I found a lot of ways to justify it, like that's another thing. You sort of find all these weird ways of justifying it. But Yeah, that was a really big part of my life that I feel I stuffed up by the choices I made with, you know, the addiction to the substance, you know, and in turn, you know, me and her ended up splitting up, and for the last 2.5 years I haven't been able to see my son. You know, that's been a really big part that yeah, it's really hurt me, and you know, I think about myself there, but it's not really something I should be thinking about too much, because it's my son that's missing out, you know, and yeah, it's my son that's missing out, and those are the things you miss out on, you know, like and it's really hard. You know, so it's been a big motivator to sort of get away from that sort of lifestyle. You know, I mean, there are a lot of other drugs involved. You know, they weren't my main issues, but you know, that came part and parcel with cannabis. You know, because people say it's the gateway drug. I used to laugh at that. Honestly, I used to take the absolute mickey out of it. Hey, and but it is. You know, like you sort of you open that part of your mind, you end up on those other things, and you know, and that sort of started making problems in my life also. You know, and yeah, now it's sort of getting better, a lot better, because you know, for a while there, you know, like trying to get on and off it since I was about 15. You know, I was going in and out of hospitals, you know, like, and speaking on the fact of trying to, like, the motivation of getting off it, you know, like, I always wanted to. It wasn't something that I wanted to keep continuing in my life, you know, because as I say, it hindered my life in all those aspects. You know, and I knew that. Like, deep down, I knew that, as much as I didn't want to admit it, you know, because I felt, as I say, I felt like I needed it, like for many different things: anxiety, depression, sleep, relaxation. You know, and really, that's just a fallacy that you come up with in your own mind to justify doing the substance in general because you're addicted. And you know, in and out of hospital a good 30-40 times, trying to get away from all that sort of stuff. Pot being the main issue, high strength cannabis, and you know, I get, you know, in and out of psych wards as well, being highly medicated on antipsychotics, benzodiazepines, even self-medicating with opiates and, like, you know, oxys, all that sort of oxys, tramadols, all that sort of stuff, trying to get away from it. And you know, even suicide at times, because it just got too hard. You know, I tried to commit suicide a good 40-50 times, countless. You know, once succeeded on one of my drug-fueled benders, trying to get away from pot and the downfalls of my life due to that and the other drugs. You know, I got airlifted to Charlie Gardner Hospital, flatlined twice on the way there. After taking 3 sheets of tramadol to try and end my life, so you know, I felt like I wasn't going to make it out. A lot of incidences like that, yeah, and this was the 8 or so times I can remember last. It was a consistent time over about 3 or 4 months, and that was a really intense, terrible part of my life. And yeah, you know, I came out of there and I said, no, I gotta change my life. I gotta do something. I have to do something. So I moved back down to Margaret River because I felt like it was sort of a calmer place to go, but ended up further on into it because it's actually a bigger sort of a scene down here for that. I mean, something like 2 truckloads of it will leave Margaret River every week, you know, like that's something like, you know, 2 or 3 tons of the stuff, and I didn't realise that at the time, but you know, it kind of got a bit worse for me down here. But you know, I think it was last year, just before my birthday, I was trying to wean myself off it, trying to get off it, and yeah, it was really hard, and in that process, I was going through my hard time, and me and my mother had a really big argument the day before my birthday, and I down spiraled hard that day, and tried committing suicide again in front of my younger brother, which in hindsight really scared me, and really scared him, because I didn't want my family to see that sort of stuff. It's once you realise how much that affects your family, it becomes a conviction, and you don't want that to be on your conscience. You don't want that to be on their conscience, and I ended up in hospital on my birthday. that was pretty terrible. I was supposed to go and that was actually the first day I was supposed to go and see my son, which is, I don't know, I managed to convince my ex-girlfriend that I wasn't doing anything like that anymore, and I wasn't able to see my son. Nobody came and visited me, because I think in hindsight they just purely had enough of seeing me do that to myself, and continuously saying I'm doing things to help myself. I mean, in honesty, I was trying, but I mean, not in the ways maybe that I should have been. And I was this is sort of like the bigger turning point for me in my life, where I decided to I needed to make a drastic change. I needed to do something. And I'd always sort of thought, like God was there. I was always cursing him. Maybe he was cursing me back. You've got to trust in me, man. Like if you wanna have some like peace of mind, some kind of way out, sort of a thing. And I was laying there in the hospital bed, and had my head under the covers. I didn't want to exist, man. To be honest, the thought in my head was the first chance I get, I'm going to just go jump in front of a truck or something, or just I had to. I thought that was my only way out of those points in my life. And anyway, there's this guy, Michael Pascoe. He's a recovering addict himself. He's come a long way. I ended up becoming a really big part of my life, almost like a mentor, like a father sort of figure. And I said to him, like, I know you, because I'd heard about him around town. My mother had spoken of him, a few other people had spoken of him, said that he worked at the hospital, and I lifted my head, sorry, I'll go back there because I missed a part. I lifted my head from under the covers because I heard someone rustling around in my room, and he's one of the orderlies there, he cleans, and that's sort of like his new thing in life. He's actually a union officer now, which is really good. He's come a long way, and
They're filming. Are you filming?
yeah.
Oh, we can go down further.
Yeah, you can edit that out, yeah. And it was a really yeah, so easy. No, they're going to be there. Bugger it. There's always going to be people around.
Yeah, just start off.
Yeah, alright.
Michael, was it?
Yeah, Michael.
Yeah, you can start from,
Yeah, no, I heard him rustling around in my room. I didn't know it was him at first, and I lifted my head from the covers and saw it was him, and I was like, hey, I know you, you're Michael, aren't you? And he goes, yeah, you're Paul, aren't you? And I was like, yep, I'm Eric's son, and he goes, oh, yeah, I know your mum. How are you, sort of thing, bit of an introduction, and sort of asked me why I was in there and what was going on for me at the time, and I explained that to him, and he said to me, he was like, oh, well, have you ever considered sort of like, turning to God, sort of going to church? And then I kind of laughed a little bit. I was like, yeah, not really, like God, sort of, at the time I thought like God hated me, and I said to him, well, okay, like, I'll give it a shot, I'll come down to church with you, like, And I did for the first few times, and really started opening my eyes, meeting people that were positive and about living a good life, and straight sort of a life, and that it could be done. I met a lot of people there that were struggling with addictions themselves, and that made me sort of realise, okay, well, you can sort of not so much into the religious side of things, but was that too. Like that was a big aspect, but also like aside from that, it was people can sort of get out of that sort of lifestyle. You can. There is a way out. Whether it's through religion or through meeting good people and focusing on that. And I sort of developed a bit of a family there through Michael and through the church, and my life started becoming a lot better. A lot more positive, a lot more a lot more positive, and what's it called? I ended up getting baptised, and a few months, I was still pretty heavily into cannabis at that point, and kind of skipped everything else, and I got offered a painting job by one of the church members, and I took that on, and to be honest, with a lot of the money that I got, I spent it on things like MDMA and alcohol, and this was post my grandfather dying, like a couple of months ago, 3 months ago, roughly, and I saw myself going really hard out down the wrong track, and I said to Michael, my friend that I mentioned, I really got to do something about this, man. I'm going to, end up either down the same track I was before with the whole suicide bullshit, and possibly more drug abuse and all that sort of stuff. And he suggested to me going through George O'Neill. He's a really great guy, solid Christian guy. He was going to the church and that, and weirdly enough, we were praying that whole week that we need a way out of this. We need a way out of this. There's got to be some kind of channel, and we'd already been speaking about George, and turned up at church that Sunday, and lo and behold, there was George. And I walked up to George and said, "Hey man, do you remember me? Like, treated my mum something like 20 years ago, and I had dinner at your house with your kids, and it was a really positive time in my life." And he goes, yeah, I do. And said to him, "Do you think you can help me with my problem?" And he says, "Sure, like we can work on something." And it's a bit confronting, like he said to me straight away, "We'll come up this week and we'll get you some implants, and I think there's this implant that will really help you with the cannabis." And so that was a point where I'd asked George. He said he'd help me, and I was a bit scared about it. Michael supported me hard out through it, and I ended up going and getting the implants, and since then it's been really good.
My name's Alan. I'm from Bunbury, Western Australia. I used heroin for 14 years. At the age of 36, I decided to fly to Israel to get treated for naltrexone before George was heard of. Flew over there, didn't agree with the methods they used, so I changed my mind and spent 14 months on a holiday. Out of that, 3 months in Israel. And after the 14-month holiday, I got back to Australia in August, September '97. And my mother found a cutout in the West Australian newspaper, wanted 500 patients for naltrexone trial. So I went and signed up for that. I was patient 417. And initially it was the naltrexone tablets. And then I think it was early 2001 I had my first implant. Since I think all up I've had 17, 18 implants. Very effective therapy. And it's one of the best things I've ever come across.
So, tell us about one of the worst parts you had to deal with while on the heroin.
One of the worst parts I had to deal with, oh look, I used heroin to mask an issue that happened early in my life. I was a victim of the Catholic Church. So, it was, look, heroin's the best drug in the world because it takes away the pain while you're stoned. But when you're not stoned, it can be a bit of a nightmare. Yeah.
Can you recall a moment or event that you feel was your turning point?
Yeah, definitely. That would have been March 1996. I just woke up one morning and I just went, I've had enough of this shit. I'm going to deal with it. So then what I had to deal with was dealing with the issue of the Catholic Church. So that was, the seed was set there, and then I started looking, and then I found out the information about naltrexone through DuPont Chemicals in Israel, Tel Aviv Hospital, and yeah.
What's a memorable story you can tell us throughout your 14 years of usage that have really either impacted or shaped your life?
Look, the whole time I worked, contract diesel fitter, worked in mining, heavy earth moving. Oh look, I was so good at using heroin that no one knew that I was using it. I'd get up in the morning, have a small shot, go to work, blah blah blah, get my work done, and it wasn't until I decided to get treated that, that's when the issue. That's when all the problems started to come out because I decided to deal with it. Yeah.
How did you get across meeting George?
Well, how I met George was through this little snippet in the paper my mother found for the naltrexone trial, and I remember ringing the clinic for information, and I spoke to Catherine, George's daughter, and I said, look, if I could speak to Dr. O'Neill, I'll pay, I think it was $1,800 up front. And that night George rang me, we had a bit of a chat, and then I think it was about 4 or 5 days later, I went in for my first rapid detox, which was the 21st December 1997. I should have been very, very sick because I had a dirty big shot before I went in for the detox. And I'd say through the grace of God, 2 hours later I was sitting in the Irish club next door having a pint of Guinness. And feeling like my life had just started all over again, but for a good, yeah.
So what did people close to you think when you were going off the heroin?
Like family-wise, they were thrilled to bits. The treatment day on the 21st of December 1997, I'll never forget. But the following day, got back to Bunbury, and my daughter came round. My parents were there, two brothers, sorry, and it was just amazing. I did not have any there was no withdrawals, there was no side effects. Yeah.
Explain what some of the symptoms you had to go through while using heroin.
What symptoms?
Yeah.
Look, I was very fortunate that I was in a position that money was not an object. I had money for drugs, so I wasn't one of these people that would go through the cycle, run out of money, you get sick, you go into replacement therapy. I never done any of that because I could afford the heroin. And my dosage, I just had enough to keep me from being sick. Is that, yeah.
What was the usual daily routine you'd do?
My routine, simple. Get up in the morning, first thing, mix up. Look, a gram of heroin would last me 6 weeks. Yeah, I was very low dosage. That's when I was working. After I got treated, I had a couple of relapses, and my usage then got up to half a gram a day. But I'd relapse, and within the maximum amount of time before I'd ring George and go back for another treatment would be 3 or 4 weeks. So I'd never, well, no, actually the longest was probably 7 weeks, 8 weeks. Yeah, and
How much would you say your life has improved from not being on heroin?
oh look, my life today is wonderful. I very little stress, have very good job, very loving, supportive family. Look, and probably one of the biggest things that I've found through it is that once you get treated, and once you get past the initial obstacles, what I've done, I've just put back and helped other people. And like, you know, we all know lots of people have got drug addiction, and a lot of people are aware of my relationship with George, and so, you know, I help a lot of people into the front door at George's, and yeah, and then support them best I can, and yeah, that's just that's what I do to give back. Yeah.
Cool.